Well, after winning Sunday's French presidential election against far-right candidate Marine Le Pen, pro-European Union Macron won by 66% of the votes to 34% for his opponent. But what implications does this win have on the EU? I have in the studio French ambassador to Ghana, His Excellency Francois Pujola, and we'll be talking about the implications of Macron's win. First of all, congratulations on a peaceful election in France. And you were here. How are you monitoring events in France?
Well, first of all, let me tell you how happy I am to be here. And of course, I think Macron's election is good news for France and good news for Europe. So, as you may know, here in Accra, the French community was able to vote. We had a polling station at the French embassy. So, actually, the French elections took place also on Ghanaian soil.
Okay, so let's talk about what this means for the EU, because we know that Macron is pro-EU and quite a number of people were excited, obviously following what's happening in the UK with Brexit. So just tell us what the implications are for France-EU relations this win.
Well, first of all, let me remind you a little bit of history, because history is important as far as the European construction, European integration is concerned. And actually, symbols also matter. We had election in France, 7th of May. The results came, and the day after, we were commemorating 8th of May, the end of World War II. And you know, end of World War II was in Europe the starting of the process towards European integration. And yesterday, 9th of May, actually, was the Europe Day. And what is the Europe Day? Europe Day is a day in 1950, back in 1950, when the then French Foreign Minister, Mr. Robert Schuman, made a declaration, which was the starting point of the European Union. He said all European countries should unite. And of course, we started only with 6 members of this European Union in order to prevent any war to happen again on the European continent, and in order to move ahead for more development and prosperity in Europe. And I think after 60 years, like Ghana's independence, we can say it was a great success indeed. So for the future, but your question, I see only a bright future for Europe and France in Europe. We have many challenges ahead of us, but now that it is very clear that the French people and France is completely pro-European oriented, I don't see any major hurdle to prevent us to move ahead and make new progress for the European integration.
Sure. But let's talk about the kind of information you've been picking here in Ghana. I'm sure there's a lot of correspondence, and you know how the EU has been responding to this matter. What has the reaction been from the EU on this, on Macron's win?
Well, of course, we were very pleased to note that most European leaders, of course, congratulated the new president, the president-elect of France, Emmanuel Macron, and especially coming from Germany, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, saying that France was, I don't want to quote exactly, but something like back again at the heart of Europe. As you know, the history, again, at the European integration was mainly about France and Germany coming closer together and making proposals to the rest of Europe to find ways to move forward together.
Right. So what do you think Mr. Macron, President-elect of France, will bring to the table? Let's talk about what difference he's likely to make.
Well, I'm not in my president-elect's head, and I cannot go into much details.
But you may have been following the campaign keenly and know what he's proposed and promised.
The main thing, well, there are two faults, I would say. On the one hand, we will have to go for a reform program in France, because we need to make Europe stronger. And Europe cannot be stronger, the Eurozone cannot be stronger if the second largest economy, mainly, well, the French economy, is not stronger. So the president-elect has already announced different measures he would like to implement in order to boost the economy, to reduce unemployment, and to streamline the public sector in particular. The second aspect at the European level would be to discuss with our European partners about how to best prepare for the future, what kind of investments we should make together to prepare for the future in terms of research, education, or infrastructure. And of course, there will be also external aspects, because we have major conferences ahead of us, especially Africa Union, European Union Summit next November in Abidjan. So we would like also at the French and European level to show that our African partners matter, and how to see the best way to move ahead for a more sustainable and inclusive growth and development in Africa.
It's interesting you bring up the AU-EU relationship, because let's talk about France-Ghana relationship and how well we've done so far.
Well, as you know, Ghana's independence was 60 years ago, as well as diplomatic relations between our two countries. So we've done well, I think, and I think also that especially in terms of economic exchanges, we could do much better indeed, and that's why we're trying to do. Actually, our relationship, French-Ghana, it's a partnership, and for us, Ghana is a very important partner in this sub-region. Our relations is basically based on three pillars. One is security, because we shouldn't forget that any relations, especially any development and prosperity, cannot happen without security and stability. We have to jointly face challenges like terrorism. So we're trying to cooperate with Ghana and Ghanaian security agencies in particular in order to better tackle that challenge. Second, development means economic development. Your president talks about Ghana beyond aid. You know, it's not only about assistance. Of course, assistance is important, but it's mainly about partnership, mutually rewarding partnership, and that's the way we want to go and to move ahead. And I know that there are many French companies interested in the Ghanaian market and ready to come. There is French expertise in key sectors of Ghanaian development on one side, and the demand is here in Ghana. So we will make it happen. And third and finally, the culture. And culture, as you know, for French people is very important.
Yes.
I know you know. And speaking of culture, you have to underline the importance of the language. Your president is fluent in French.
I was just going to ask you about that.
And we are very pleased about it, and we appreciate it. And we appreciate it not only for the sake of, the beauty of the French language, but for geopolitical and economical reasons. The West African integration is an important phenomenon, an important movement for the future of Ghana. Ghana must play its full part in this process. And the development of French learning and teaching in Ghana is one key element of it. And we are ready to support any efforts of the Ghanaian government in this direction.
Very interesting that you mentioned the French language, because you have centers, the Alliance Française, where you train, Anglophone speakers to learn the French language. But is there anything you're hoping to do to also encourage, the learning of the language? As you said, the president has mentioned that he's hoping to make it a compulsory subject in school.
The best way to do it, I would say, is to convince people that it is important in this process I mentioned of regional integration to offer maybe more jobs and career opportunities to the Ghanaian youth. Once they will be convinced that speaking French can be an asset, actually, then they will be more motivated. Because, of course, we are very happy to see that the government wants to develop the teaching of French. And we actually, as I said, support that movement. We will, in particular, help to train the trainers of French teachers here in Ghana. So that is underway. But we should look at new aspects of teaching and learning French in Ghana, like using mobile applications and new technologies, like using maybe also the Ghanaian media, maybe your media.
Oui, monsieur.
Voilà. Nous pourrions parler un peu en français aussi à Joy Television.
Je comprends un peu.
And I'm sure lots of your viewers also do understand, which is a very good news indeed. So that is the media can play a major part in it. and of course the government and the Ministry of Education.
Right. Thank you very much for joining me, Your Excellency Francois Pujola. And we've been having a conversation about the French election that just ended on Sunday. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Enjoy the rest of your day. While you're watching Joy News Desk with me, Bernice Abu Beid, it's now time for Business with Emmanuel Abwajiriafe.